So, what's Criteo? I think probably kind of a bunch of you are going to know who we are. Some of you don't. Essentially, we're a retargeting business. We IPO'd in 2013, and what we do is we personalize ads cross-device, really kind of at scale around the world. And as you can imagine, mobile apps have become incredibly important to our business, not only just our business, but obviously our clients' businesses alike. So today, we don't have a huge amount of time, 40 minutes and counting. I thought I'd kind of split it into kind of three main areas. So firstly, kind of look at m-commerce, kind of what we're seeing with the kind of real data that we have. Then have a think about this kind of dynamic idea, because it's floated around all the time. Dynamic advertising, dynamic retargeting. We know we've heard quite a lot about that today already. But I'll definitely give my take on it. And then a little look into 2016. What can we expect, and what do I think is going to be important for particularly our space to actually develop. So firstly, it's a fairly bold statement that kind of apps are better. And I'm going to come to substantiate that with some numbers. So what we do is we create a mobile commerce report, and we do that every quarter. And what it looks at, billions of transactions that we see. Okay, so we have 9,000 odd clients, and it looks at specifically kind of real-time data, recent data, and it's kind of relevant data. So I'd like to share some of that with you guys today. So kind of why do apps matter? So when we talk about kind of committed app retailers, we talk about people who've actually genuinely put some investment into their mobile app. And when they have, based on the data we've seen, in retail, 58% of the sales are delivered via the mobile app, and in travel, around about half. So you can kind of conclude that if you do invest in your mobile app, you're looking to get about half of the sales. And kind of why is that, really? Because, really it comes down to conversion rates. The kind of funnel which the graph which I've shown you, looks at mobile browser, desktop, and mobile apps. Now, I don't think it's a surprise that the app performs better than the mobile browser, but I think what is really interesting is that it performed twice as well as desktop in retail, and I think it's 1.6 times in travel. So that's really, really important. That's fundamental to what's happening here. So why is that? And it's a question that all of our clients kind of ask us all the time, and I think we can quite easily summarize it in two ways. So basically, apps make browsing super fun and buying easy. And I'm going to do this conversion funnel now, and it's split app side and mobile browser. So when you come onto an application, of course, it's easy to use. When you go onto Facebook and you're in the newsfeed and you look at that pointless content that you knew you just have to look at, it's the same thing when you go to a retail app. And you end up kind of looking at those kind of, that product which you don't realize you really wanted to see. And it's because you're browsing multiple products. So our study that looked at all this, looked at around about 14 products being put, had been browsed per visit on the mobile application, versus only around about 4 on the browser. The result of that is that you put a lot more in your basket. And when you put more in your basket, the chances are you're going to convert more. So 2.5 times more products are put in the basket, and about 1.5 times more conversion rates are occurring. So when you combine that, the kind of net result is about 3.7 times better conversion rates in the mobile app. And not only that, the baskets are higher as well. So on average, the baskets we saw around about $116 in the mobile app. $100 for desktop and then a little bit less for mobile browser. So when you bring that kind of together, it's pretty compelling. You're browsing more products, you're putting a hell of a lot more in the basket, you're converting better, and ultimately that kind of cart is a lot higher. So for anyone here who's kind of on the fence about committing to a kind of app in mobile commerce, absolutely go for it. The next piece I want to look at is kind of where we are today. I think it always helps to kind of set the scene. I think I'm not going to tell you about CPIs rising and retention being important. I think that's a given. But for sure, deep linking has progressed a lot, and I've heard about it talk today. The bills that we receive now are pretty accurately going to the pages where we need them to go. But I think there's kind of two main kind of constraints right now, and that's really in supply. And I'm talking specifically about retargeted supply here, right? Not kind of UA supply that's available to vendors like ourselves to actually go out and buy. And the vast majority is in IAB formats, so the interstitials, the 320 by 50s, and it only really just this kind of native imagery is starting to unlock. And then if you think about the proprietary sources, the Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, kind of all those kind of chaps, it's really not that available for vendors like ourselves. I mean, you can do it in certain ways on static, but certainly not when you're talking about dynamic retargeting. So those are kind of like two sort of constraints. Still, it's still working well. I think the bulk of what we see right now, because it's fairly new in app retargeting, is static. Okay, so it's kind of creating these segments, saying you've got a bunch of users that haven't used your app for 6 months, 12 months, and then actually, serving them ads and kind of hoping to kind of get them to kind of click and engage again. But it's fairly kind of it's fairly kind of static. So there's actually this kind of small portion of a few companies that's starting to do it, and certainly what we're trying to do is around dynamic retargeting. So let's have a look at it. If you break it down, it's kind of three things. It's really about understanding that user behavior in a hell of a lot more depth. It's about interacting one-to-one with the user. That's so important. And it's about real-time data. It's not taking a whole bunch of users that haven't used the app for 12 months. It's about looking at what are your users doing right now in the application, and how can you manipulate that data and use that data to generate better conversion rates. So I'll give you an example of Booking. So Booking, it's a wicked app, right? I'm sure everyone here has used Booking.com, and the experience is good. You can search various products, you can look at many hotels, you can look at star ratings, availability, you can look at prices, all those kind of things. So it's a good experience. All that data needs to be funneled back if you're going to do retargeting properly, right? It needs to be done in real time as well, because if you don't, then how are you going to make the best decisions on that user? So when someone leaves, so I have to let this go a little bit. The genius has managed to do a three-worder. Then pops our lovely dynamic banner. And I'll talk you through it, but the idea is you've got really kind of like personalized advertising here. We're looking at not just what the user has done, but we're looking at what every other user has done in the application. What are the hotels which have converted the best for the whole user set, especially around that particular group and in that particular area, and we want to show those. We want to look at availability, because that's something which is just not done as a norm. What's the point in seeing an ad, and if you're actually interested in an ad, which is quite unlikely a lot of the time, if you actually click on it and go through and it's not available, it's not going to be a great user experience. So why do I kind of go through all this? Because really, when we're talking about real dynamic retargeting, the benefit is performance. It's not easy to do, right? Machine learning is not something which just kind of happens. You need a whole bunch of engineers kind of working on this stuff. And you need to think about this thing on a one-to-one basis. It's really important that you're thinking about your users on a one-to-one basis. You need to bid differently for those users. You need to be really flexible with that bidding. And these kind of probability models that are in place in the back end, can only work when that happens. Creative optimization, I think, it's also nice to kind of touch on as well, because some people kind of maybe don't get so much how important it is, but just testing, A/B testing ads is one thing, but the individual elements within the ad are super important. So whether it's the call to actions, the colors, the different kind of structures of the ad, whether you show star ratings, whether you show prices or not, all those kind of things will make incremental kind of benefits to your campaigns. The result is less kind of ad fatigue, let's say, and certainly better conversion rates off the back of it. Now, I've got a case study here. Felix, I'm very sorry about the logo. We will update it, I promise. But this actually isn't dynamic, but it's something I wanted to kind of think about with any of the kind of gaming companies that are here. Maybe we can talk later and kind of get your thoughts on it too. But this is static, right? So static's working, right? It's working reasonably well. The challenge InnoGames, gave to us was to say, look, can you deliver incremental ROI? So proven incremental ROI, and can you generate better ARPU from our users? And we did that, right? We did a conversion rate of about 16%. We've done a 2-to-1 ROI. But I think what's interesting for us, for the community, is that can we move what is absolutely a kind of static model for gaming to something that's dynamic? Now, I don't know is the answer. We haven't really done anything properly yet, but I think there's definitely potential there. If I'm playing games on Forge of Empires, for example, it's a really cool game. I can go through the levels. I can essentially build cities, build my empire, and I can essentially get building. So I could create a whole bunch of products in the product feed that side, and if I know how much credit is in a user's account, then that's really interesting as well. So you could say to yourself, well, if they don't have any credit, well, obviously we can push them kind of credit, push them kind of diamonds, things like that. And if they do, and we know what level they're at, then why not push them a product ad? Why not push them a building which would actually help them progress through the game and get them monetization points? So, there's all these kind of things that we're looking to do, and I think that could be really, really opened up to the gaming companies. It's certainly what I'd like to test. I'm not saying it's going to work, but I think it's really, really interesting. So the future, I've kind of summarised it here. I think there's definitely going to be a shift towards dynamic, that's for sure. I think that as vendors get more sophisticated with the way they target, we're going to see better ROI. But I think that comes from the expectation levels now. It really does. I think the expectation is it has to work, it has to back out, it has to be proven. So I do see improvements in 2016. I think the two main things we're going to look at are supply and this idea of attribution. So if you think about supply, again, I'm being specific to retargeting here. I know it's unlocking, so native is becoming available. That could add kind of 10% reach alone to a campaign, and it's really interesting. And it's tough because if you're going to do something that's dynamic, the way it's coded, the way it renders is very, very different. So it is a technical challenge. But then the proprietary sources, I think, are also that's the biggest thing, right? If you can all of a sudden you can plug into these big sources like Facebook, like Twitter, Pinterest, etc., Instagram, then you're talking about 30% more reach. So this kind of limited reach that we have at the moment in the app retargeting space can really, really open up. And then there's attribution. And attribution is a whole other topic, and if I had more time, of course, I think it's much more of its own unique kind of talk. But I don't believe at the moment that everyone's really happy with the way retargeting is actually kind of attributed. I think that there's lots of issues with the way that things are being built specifically for user acquisition. And I think there's a lot of room to improve. Whether we look at sort of time decay models, whether you look at kind of U-shaped models, I think all those things will be really interesting. And I really encourage anyone who's out there who's got an application right now to come to their vendors, talk to us and speak to the Adjust, the Tune, the AppsFlyers of the world, and we can try and think about a model which actually works better in the long run. Because I think that this kind of last click model isn't necessarily the best. So that's it. Look, conclusion, if you're in e-commerce, apps are absolutely flying. Apps are better. There's a huge shift that way. Really, really invest in your application and you'll reap the rewards. I think dynamic advertising, you've got to understand that it's unique, it's one-to-one, it has to be. Anything else that's kind of like comes in as dynamic retargeting really isn't dynamic retargeting. And I think as we move into 2016, I think this kind of scale is going to hit us. I think actually it's a pretty nice spot for app retargeting. It's maturing quite nicely, and I think that actually the campaigns that you run will actually kind of scale up, and and I think it's going to work out. So my last point is that I took a snapshot of the data for the mobile commerce report. You can take it all from a URL here. We've got a little stand outside where we've printed out a whole bunch of the commerce reports. We've also got some in the games case studies. I have my colleagues Jens, head of sales, and Deborah, head of account strategy. We'd be delighted to speak to you after we're sponsoring some coffee. And I think that's pretty much it. So thanks all for your time. Cheers.